From the Middle, 500 Section Lounge, and Big 10 Plus 4 are all proud members of OddPods Media. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 157 of From the Middle. We are very excited about this episode. Although we're missing Kory this week, we have a guest, Sam Sprunger, who steps in as the third chair, and we talk all things about living in the Midwest and lots of college football in the second half. You're going to love this episode if you're a sports fan or if you like talking about cornfields. So enjoy.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited for our third chair this week. Kory is out. Kendall and I are here. So like a weird tag team match, Kory has stepped out of the ring, and we have invited our good friend, Sam Sprunger. Sam, thank you so much for joining the podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's, I look forward to recording anytime. I'm so happy that you messaged me and asked if I could cover Kory being gone. I'm a teacher, so like this part, and I teach online, so like right now is the absolute worst time of the school year, and this is my release. So yeah, get ready.
So where you on Zoom is you in the zone, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I've never heard, and Kendall, I'm guessing you hear it every time too. The lady, when you hit record, says recording started. I have never heard that, and I've used Zoom for 3.5 or close to 3 years.
Interesting. Yeah,
I've always been on the recording
on Dylan's
side.
end. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And
because Dylan, you don't hear it, correct?
I think I heard it.
Or maybe I have it. Maybe it's a setting on mine.
Could be a setting
where I just don't listen. I hear it, and it was a default or something. I don't know, because I've never heard her say recording started.
Yeah, pay no mind, to the men behind the curtain here. But I'm so glad that you could join. For some people who've been listening for the Wizard of Oz reference.
Oh yeah.
I'm so glad that you could join. For some people who have been listening for a while, they hear us refer to OddPods Media, and they probably recognize your voice and don't know what from. You are a co-host. If they haven't listened yet, of course. If they have, they
correct.
will. You are a co-host of 2 OddPods Media shows, 500 Section Lounge and Big 10 Plus 4. And I felt like this was a perfect time to have you on and talk sports because Kory wasn't here.
Let's wait for him to leave, then we'll talk.
Yeah, and then if I would only have been better prepared if we would have gotten voicemails beforehand to chime in with sports questions. But I really had something fun. I want to let you kind of fill everyone in on your shows, but I really had something I want to do. We have a normal segment called Answers from the Middle. We're going to skip that this week, but in a very Midwestern fashion, because you are also from the Midwest. You're an Indiana guy who's a transplant to Ohio.
I am.
I felt like we could do something a little different and see others' responses to the question. This is an Ask Reddit thread of what is the most Midwestern thing ever. And so that's the question. And
there are so many possibilities. That's the issue is you could just see anything.
That's right. I think we should sprinkle in a little bit of our own and a little bit of the responses from the thread. And people listening at home can either go, yeah, if they agree, or ope, if they don't, and kind of give a little yeah or ope to go along with whether they feel like that's truly Midwestern or not. Ope. And before we deep dive this, our general consensus, as we've now got Ohio, Kendall, you're a bit of a Michigan guy. We've got an Indiana guy in here now. general consensus, Midwest is what, like Ohio to like Iowa? Is that what we're going to kind of generally, Nebraska?
Maybe Nebraska, Kansas type, that, to that point.
A little bit of Big Ten country, a little bit of Big 12 country. Ironically, we'll have some sports for the back end. So do you have any that either of you want to lead with that feels like the most Midwestern thing ever? Or I can just jump in.
I was going to say, when you told me that this could be potentially a topic earlier today, I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, there's this. As soon as you hit record and ask that question, I lost almost. So I think if I'm able to hear you start it, then I became okay.
That's why all the showmans aren't from the Midwest. We're not fast enough on our feet out here. So
I would say, at least in our area of the Midwest, driving down the road and commenting on the fields, the farm fields that you're driving by. And I think probably every year now, I like at some point will tell my kids something along the lines of, oh, looks like they're planting soybeans this year right there.
Yep.
I bet you it was corn last year.
Yesterday, I was driving with my wife, and we came to a stop sign in the country-ish. It was right on the edge of Lima, and we came to the edge of a cornfield, and I'm like, oh, look, the corn's sprouting up pretty good. I talked about the corn.
Yeah. We're not farmers.
I have lived in a town every day of my life, but yet I still talk about the corn.
Yeah, you can weigh in on the corn. And you know what? You still get the benefit of a certain level of authenticity because you've grown up in the Midwest your whole life.
Yeah.
And it would be different if you said you grew up in like Chicago, like a burb of Chicago. You wouldn't get the same
That's
level
metropolitan
of credit. Right.
Midwest,
That's the New York City of the Midwest. You wouldn't get credit there, but because you're from medium to small size towns, we all kind of know about the corn,
which
though,
most
don't we?
of us are. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, I grew up in a town of 2,200 people, moved out of that town when I was 25 to move to a city of 13,000 people.
Right.
I then moved to a village in Ohio of 4,600. So like, that's the only time I lived somewhere that had more people was when I lived on campus or went to Ball State for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's the only time.
It's wild. So in that vein, we are certainly allowed to weigh in on the corn. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Knee high by the 4th of July, buddy.
Oh man, this is going to be fun. The very top response to the Ask Reddit thread of what is the most Midwestern thing ever is a quote. It wouldn't be so bad out if it weren't for the wind. Is that a yeah or an ope from you boys?
I would totally concur. I've said that many times and heard it because it's as silly as it sounds, it's absolutely true. I can handle cold, but you put a biting wind to it, it sucks.
Yeah.
So I've said it.
Yeah. I feel like this one, you might even lose some Midwesterners as you get down to like southeastern Ohio, southwestern. It's a little hillier. Maybe the wind in certain areas isn't quite as strong, but certainly the flat parts of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, this feels very true.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
So yes, that's an absolute yup.
Yeah. So it's a yep. Next one, driving long distances. Why use a plane? You just drive everywhere.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I think I made this list. Like I have driven to Florida 3 times in my life. And that is a horrible, horrible drive. But yeah, I've only flown there once, and that was when I only had 1 kid. Like I've got 4 now. I ain't flying nowhere.
Yeah.
Right now I'm not really driving anywhere either, but that's not the point. But like I'm not flying anywhere. I'm driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We as long as something is within a day and a half's drive, like that seems not only perfectly reasonable, but preferable to flying. That is absolutely right.
You know why? Because think of all the sandwiches and snacks you could pack in a cooler in your van.
Exactly.
Versus flying and the cost. And why would you ever spend the money to fly when you could just drive? So that's
here's the thing too. For me, anyways, I purchased my wife and I adopted 4 boys 4 years ago, and we bought a 15 passenger sized van that had 12 seats in it. So we've got a compartment in the back, or an area in the back where we can pack that bad boy full. Like, I've packed it high enough to where I can't see out the rear view. I've got to use the side mirrors.
Yeah.
So like, we'll drive anywhere.
Not only do you have enough seats, they each have their own respective toy battle zones for them to each play.
That's correct.
And stack up their
Nerf
backpack.
guns are great in the van, unless we've got to make a barrier though. We've got to be like, look, you can't shoot at the front of the.
That's perfect.
I can't be getting hit in the eye or something, you know?
Yeah. Yes. You won't be able to see out the back. You certainly need both eyes to see out the front. So
correct.
I love the follow-up response to that one, by the way. It said made it there in 18 hours. So that's not bad. Which feels very
good time.
Very appropriate. That's great time. And then here's another one. You go first. Nah, it's NAW. Nah, you go ahead. Repeatedly when 2 people meet at a corner or in line at a store.
I feel like that one's a little bit more regional.
Yeah.
That could also be hand gestures at the same time. Like, that could be a same conversation made with hand gestures at a 4-way stop even.
Yeah.
Like waving, and then they wave you, and then you're like, no, wave. And then you let off the gas or the brake for just a quick second, and so do they, and you both slam on. That's kind of the conversation that you just had right there.
Yeah. I don't know that one feels specifically Midwestern.
I don't think so either, but I've had that conversation.
Yeah, I'll give that one a big ope. I'm not sure that one is exclusively Midwestern, but I like it.
Well, none of these would be. So going back to the weather one, for example, and this is the Midwest has sort of a charm, maybe that's kind of its own, not entirely unique, but outside of that, there's just a lot of stuff that, like, I feel like we kind of grab from other places. And for me, a good example of that is the weather thing. It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the wind. And if we're talking about biting cold weather is one of those things where it doesn't matter where you're from. The people south of you have more to complain about in the summertime, and the people north of you have more to complain about in the wintertime. And unless you're at the very extremes in either direction, like, that's always going to be true. So we can complain about winter all we want.
True.
But we probably, sound like a bunch of pansies to Canadians, right?
Yeah.
And we can complain about the heat all we want, but again, go to Brazil or whatever, and so
there's always going to be somebody that says, "So what? I've experienced worse."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's like we make fun of Kentucky, but we're here living in Michigan's Kentucky,
right?
And that's my point. So, like, I would still give that one the, like, that happens here often enough, I think. I think it fits. Long way around. I wasn't expecting to strongly disagree in this conversation.
You didn't know there was going to be a strong disagree with the consensus.
Look, we have to approach this from the middle, so we need every angle on this list.
Right, you did well there. Thank you.
And we could have just as easily said with the wind one, it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the humidity. I feel like that's something that gets thrown out here a lot.
Hey, and also, maybe that's a good Midwest thing, is that we get to say both of those things.
We get to say humidity and cold wind. That's right. Yeah. There's the real one.
I was going to say, we do experience every season. There's at least 1 week out of every fall and summer, or fall and spring, that the Midwest experiences all of the seasons.
Beautiful.
I don't know of any other area in this country that does that. Like, once it gets cold in South Dakota, it stays there. It doesn't like, we're going to give you a 85-degree day in there too.
Most wonderful time of the year. Also, is it a Midwest thing? This one just came to mind as you were chatting and you said the Florida of the South or something. Are we the only region that frequently uses other cities compare to other cities nearby? Like, Louisville's just Indianapolis with horse racing and bourbon. Like, is that a thing? Like, because we all know that all the cities except Chicago that are, quote, major cities aren't that different.
Maybe.
Everyone's got a thing or two that's like a little different, and then even I've described Louisville that way. It's like St. Louis is just Louisville with an arch and no horses. It's not really that different.
Yeah, I've certainly described Indianapolis that way, saying it's basically Columbus. Like it's
a slightly smaller Columbus with an NFL team. Like
but no NHL team.
Yeah, there you go.
So I mean, like, both of them have their things, but yeah, I haven't done it a lot, but I've heard it used a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's specific to us or if it's a complete countrywide thing.
I hope people all over the world and country will weigh in on our responses to these via social media and voicemails. All right, here's the next one. Believing you don't speak with an accent is pretty common in Michigan. I like that they just picked on Michigan in this list on this one, but alternatively, the people in Minnesota have to know they have an accent, right?
I think so.
If they don't, there's something wrong because it's thick.
Like Wisconsin's even a little, maybe closer to Michigan there than like Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's
even Cleveland and Cincinnati have some
podcasts.
Regional stuff.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the further north you go in Michigan, the
Uber,
the more there is. Actually, it changes. I think I feel like Michigan has pretty generic Midwestern accent if you're Lansing and south, and then as you start to go north, it starts to draw out a little bit, and then you cross a bridge into the Upper Peninsula, and now all of a sudden you're in Minnesota. Basically, when it comes to accents,
does the
accent Canada? Like, I mean, there's A's and all that.
That's what I was going to ask. Does the accent actually get closer to Canadian accent?
I think
the more north you go.
My dad is born and raised in the Upper Peninsula, and we, as kids, we would make fun of him because we lived in Ohio, but you could always tell when he was talking to family because the accent came out and it was so thick, and the mannerisms and the saying "a" at the end of sentences and things like that. He doesn't do that normally unless he's talking to his brother, and then it's like a flip gets switched. A switch gets flipped.
Is that another Midwest saying? I don't know about.
I don't know.
Is the Upper Peninsula like the Scotland of the Midwest? Is that what we're saying? You just draw the line between England and Scotland, and it's like, the UP. I don't know.
We used to make fun of them because we would travel up there a lot as kids, and there was something magical about that bridge that, like, when we ended up on the other side of it, his accent came back.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a magnetic wall that activates in the chip installed or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if the UP is Scotland, that means Minnesota and Wisconsin is Ireland. And so I think I can accept that version of European transplant. All right, let me move to the next one.
You just had to do the city thing, but with like whole states and countries.
Whole states and countries. As if Americans know enough about the rest of the world to be able to make parallel analogies.
I was going to say, you just taught us more about Scotland than you did about Michigan.
That's funny. All right. Well, that's why we're here, I guess. This is a comedy podcast. Here's the next one. Saying goodbye is a 2-hour affair.
Yes. I don't know of any other region that does that. We say goodbye like 50 times before it's actually okay. I'm out the door.
Yeah.
Pulling away, not necessarily out the door. I've held half the discussion out the door before. So
what I'm hearing then is the Midwest is the most European part of America. We just drag out the whole social thing. That's the only time you'll ever hear the Midwest compared to Europe again.
Although I do know one thing that we in the Midwest, most people, or most, I guess, in the Midwest don't do do something that they don't do in Europe, and that's eat dinner at like 6 or 7 o'clock.
No,
they eat at like 10 or 11 at night.
Very taboo here to eat dinner that late. In fact, we probably go the opposite direction. The sooner the better. bed before the sun goes down kind of thing. I like a couple of the follow-up comments to that one is half of that time is spent holding your car door open. The other one is 20 minutes in the living room, 15 minutes in front of the front door, 20 minutes on the porch, 35 minutes with your hand on your car door handle, 15 minutes with your door open, 1 foot inside, 5 minutes with the window rolled down. The fact
That's good.
The fact that one just kept going was great.
But it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, that was good. Here's another one for our more Midwestern plains folks. Watching a tornado from your front porch, or alternatively, watching a front porch from your tornado. Did you have weather down in your area tonight befo we recorded? It wasn't bad.
Okay.
It wasn't too bad.
There was a bunch that went through, and I was watching the cloud. I love watching the clouds. I've never seen a tornado though.
Never.
I love. Is it me or you two? Do you watch the weather? Like when it rains, yeah. I love watching the rain.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant Weather Channel. Like
no, like the real Weather Channel, which is outside.
Yeah, I don't go outside. You mean on the app on my phone, like
right from your Ring doorbell? Yes,
the screen. Actually, it's funny. I love sleeping while it's raining or thunderstorming.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I like being especially when it's cool, like when a storm breaks the heat and cool rolls in and you can sit on a porch or a patio and just it's raining and storming. That's great. Super relaxing for me.
I love watching like being night. If we had a thunderstorm or a storm roll through, I love watching the lightning. And then I like during the day, if it's coming down, you can see the sheets of the rain running through. It's just a really cool, it's kind of therapeutic for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I love watching storms as well. Like as a kid, I used to always sit on the front porch, and then now, like sometimes I'll pull up a chair in the garage, or like we have a big window in the front of our house and the chair right next to it, and I'll just plant myself there. Yeah, very therapeutic. And oddly enough, I've never ever seen a tornado, and it's one of those things where I really want to.
I want to, but I don't know that it might not be the best thing to happen.
Exactly.
So like, it's one of those that, yeah, it would be exciting in the aspect of that high tense moment.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'd want to actually be there when the tornado went through.
I want to see one start to come down and then second guess itself
and change its mind.
Change its mind and then get sucked back up into the clouds and go away.
I can't do this.
I'm not ready.
I was gonna say, or the tornado just lets out a big and just never mind.
Oh, didn't see you there.
Yeah.
So here's my question to you two. Do you two use that? Oh, do you say
I find myself saying it unintentionally in public, most commonly in public situations where it's that, let me scoot past you, like that kind of stereotype.
Right. That's when I use it the most.
Yeah. Other than that, it's mostly a joke. But like if I'm using it seriously, it's social situations.
If I'm close to bumping into somebody or sorry, just real quick. Oh. So I didn't know if you'd like totally flushed it out of your vocab and only used it as a joke.
I
can't. I say
It's funny. A lot of the sort of stuff that I heard growing up that was wrong, I think most of that I've sort of pushed out of my head. Washcloth is one that like you hear, certain people use growing up. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but saying like a lot of people shorten probably to prolly and then to pry. Yeah, you could probably just check, over there in the bedroom to see if it's on the whatever. So a lot of people, I notice the more I think about it, say pry without really thinking about it. It's this total shortening that we've done with that one. But most of those are gone. Every now and then, my mom was just visiting for the weekend and she said something. Oh, if I think of it, I'll say it. But it was a real like, you're from Ohio and I've never heard you talk that Southern. It was real twangy. But yeah, most of that's gone though. How about you guys?
Ope is the only one that comes to my mind. I don't know what else I do.
My grandmother or my grandparents on my mom's side were like from east or western Indiana, west central Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe about 25 minutes to 40 minutes away from northwest of Indianapolis, but
as the crow flies,
probably, yeah. You know what? I text probably all the time. Instead of probably, but yeah, anyways.
Unbelievable.
But they were from that side of the state, and they would say, the things that swim in the sea. What are they?
Fish.
Yeah, they would call them fish.
Fish. Oh,
fish.
Yeah,
and dish. So I've only heard it from people in that area of the state, and I don't understand why. But that to me is, I've never heard anybody other than people from that region of Indiana call those two words by that way. So I would say that's a regional Midwestern, but more regional, I guess, would be.
Yeah. That's it brought to mind another one. Crick instead of creek is very common. And you, that one, most people probably wouldn't catch in passing. Oh yeah, we're down by the creek, crick doing da da da. One that's been really hard for me to break even as an adult is saying pillow instead of pillow. Pillow was very common when I was young, or I was around at least enough people that said pillow. Oh, go grab a pillow off the couch. And I still sometimes have to catch myself and say pillow, like with a little extra. I've
never heard that one.
Yeah.
And I feel like the wash instead of wash.
Mm-hmm.
Me always being from Central Ohio and then living for a short while in Michigan. I didn't experience it in Michigan. I experienced it in Central Ohio, but only from people who were either from Northwest Ohio or Southeast Ohio.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's like those two corners of Ohio, or from your perspective, this. If it's hyper regional to those two areas, or if that's a Midwest thing, or an Ohio thing, or what that is, I don't know.
It's fascinating.
My experience with that.
Do we want to do a few more?
This isn't meant to be like mean, but is that more of a hill style dialect? Warsh?
Maybe.
And we can always.
I don't know what it is. Appalachia, is that what the Appalachians is what goes through?
I was going to say, we're so close to Pennsylvania and West Virginia. We can certainly blame some things on them.
Sure, yeah.
They're not in the Midwest anyways.
We'll say they're to blame for pitcher instead of picture as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that bothers me. Though that's a whole different conversation. Words that bother, like the way they're pronounced. Oh, like then when you're trying to say than, or vice versa. That bothers me when I see it written that way.
Yeah.
It's like that does not, or the your and all that. But
all right, do we want to do a couple more, or we feel like we've covered the Midwest?
I'm up for one more or a couple more.
A couple more. All right.
Yeah.
So the next one
is fun. I like this because I'm like, man, I'm really Midwestern.
I think pretty much all these have been instead of ope. Here, this is a real quick one with a reply and a couple sub comments. Corn and then fields, and then cornfields this year, soybean fields next year. Yep. Saying, just gonna sneak right past you there while shopping at Meijer for some ginger ale to help cure you of some seasonal stuff after driving through snowy remnants of lake effect storm. That was very specific. You got all kinds of
so true. That's the kicker, is it's so true.
Waving at my neighbors when driving by. I'm gonna give that one a big ope. That's just having friendly neighbors.
Exactly.
Parties in barns and families playing cards very regularly.
Yeah.
Standing outside and taking a deep breath before saying it's going to rain soon. Or
oh my good Lord, I said that this afternoon.
All right. Well, that's why you're on the show, and that's why we did this list, buddy.
I don't need a weather channel.
That's right.
Watch
I told my youngest, we were getting in the van. I'm like, it's going to rain real quick. We need to get in the van. And, in like 30 seconds, it was raining.
I would actually love to know if this one is a Midwestern thing. Having a kitchen fridge and a garage fridge. I would really like to know if that's Midwestern or not.
Yeah, I guess I don't visit out of the Midwest much, but like anybody that I know that I can think of off the top of my head that lives like in Florida, I've got some friends there. I don't think they have a fridge in their garage, but that may be a personal thing too.
Bunch of suckers. I don't know what they're doing without a second fridge.
I know.
A couple more that hit home. Dollar Generals everywhere. You can be in the middle of nowhere and there's still a Dollar General.
That's where Dollar General shine.
Yeah, because there's
I don't know
else.
that. I don't know that that's specific to the Midwest. Is it though?
No, but there's got to be like Dollar Trees or a generic
some sort
stores.
of
But yeah, tuna noodle casserole. Let's see. Watch out for deer. Yeah, that's a big one. That's it. That's probably good. Well, that was a very fun list. Thank you for humoring me on that one. This feels like a great spot to take a quick break, hear from some of our friends in the OddPods network, and we'll be right back.
I'm Richie, aka Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, aka Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Hi, I'm Sam.
I'm Richie.
I'm Little Matt.
And here in the 500 Section Lounge, we are three dads who host a family-friendly weekly podcast.
Yep, we laugh, we go on tangents, and we talk to great guests.
Tangents? I don't know what you're talking about with that. There are gases leaking?
All right, okay.
Yeah, we have legendary conversations from sports to history and everything in between.
So be on the lookout for what we do next.
And always be there to
grab a listen.
Hey, it's Dalton.
And Sam.
We want to tell you about our podcast called Big 10 Plus 4.
Are you a college football fan who doesn't want to always be talking about the SEC?
Are you a college basketball fan who's tired of hearing how the Big 10 doesn't win in the big dance?
Then we're the show for you. Check us out each week on the OddPods Media Network. We bring you college sports with a Big 10 flavor.
Big 10 Plus 4. College sports with Midwest perspective. Blue collar and blue blood.
All right, we are back with our third chair, Sam Sprunger. Thank you so much for joining. And you probably just heard during the ad break about some of Sam's shows. Sam, you are, as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, a co-host of 2 of the OddPods Media Network shows. Please take a moment to tell everyone about those since they just heard the ads.
Yeah.
Take a moment to tell everyone and anything else you want them to know and where to find your shows.
Yeah, well, if I run too long, just tap the wrist while I'm talking. It's okay. I've already taken too long. Jeez, I guess. All right. Well, all right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got your ad time.
Yeah.
No, I am co-host of 2 shows in the network. One is the 500 Section Lounge, and it is the one. It's my, like, if I have a flagship show, like no matter how many shows I do in my life, the 500 Section Lounge will be my flagship. Like if, but it started out as a sports show. That's why we have 500 Section in our name. It started with me talking for 45 minutes on Major League Baseball playoffs, and I was like, I need to get somebody pulled in here to kind of rein me in, and that's where Richie came, and then we added Little Matt, and we have such an awesome dynamic. But basically, we laugh, we joke, we just kind of hang out for a little bit, but then we also have really awesome guests. And that's kind of why we went away from sports, is we got more and more guests that were not sports related, but we wanted to talk to them anyways. So I didn't at the time have the time to do 2 shows. So we said, okay, we're going to get away from sports exclusively and go to this. And our tagline is, we have legendary conversations from sports to history and everything in between. I'm sure you heard that in the ad. But like we've had, excuse me, we've had movie, actors, musicians, we've had comedians, kind of like you guys. You've had kind of the same, but I think maybe we do just a little bit more guest centric.
Mhm.
You have more shows that are not their topic related rather than we're bringing a guest on. But we're very similar in that aspect as well, because we have the opener and our closer that we will talk about things outside of who our guest is, but then our meat and potatoes is our guest. So we're similar, but not quite.
And I think the thing that our listeners might appreciate most about 500 section is you keep it pretty wholesome like we do generally. It's much more family friendly than a lot of content out there.
Mhm.
So for anybody who likes our shows, especially who likes our interview episodes, regardless of our guest, 500 section lounge would absolutely be that amped up. But not in an unfriendly family way, still in a family friendly way.
Now, it was a choice to go that way. If you know me outside of being on the air, cursing's probably my third favorite thing to do in the entire world. But being a teacher for as long as I've been a coach for a really long time. I know when I have to turn it off. I have to have that filter on, and it's real easy to sprinkle in. And I don't damn anybody that does it. I mean, that's their choice. But I just think it's a better quality show to me if I can get a laugh out of you by doing it without cursing.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, we get it. Kory drinks and curses like a sailor off the show, just nonstop. He's off the rails. So we can certainly appreciate that.
But then there was another reason was, and I hate saying he got caught, but one of my sons got, a teacher heard him listening to the show at school. And so my wife said, if you want to keep doing this, I will support you as long as you keep it PG. Now, the topics we cover, not necessarily we've had people on there talking about, breaking their neck and, just like, and then turning into a skydive or, recouping and skydiving again. We talked to a lot of different people. We have some episodes that we don't edit, or they have went above and beyond the cursing allotment that we're okay with, and we just put a blue in. Our logo is green and white, but if it's one of those episodes, we turn the green blue. Plus, we put a little advisory thing in the show notes, so that way our listeners, if they want to be able to listen with their kids, I mean, I don't know necessarily how many people listen with their kids, but they can if they want, So
that's awesome.
That's the lounge. That's the 500 section lounge. It's really fun to do. Now I started at the beginning of 2022 Big 10 +4 with my buddy Dalton Shetler. Actually, get this, I told you I was a coach. I coached him. He was on my senior league team that I coached on, or I was the head coach and he was one of my players, and now he's doing some broadcasting and stuff in the Big 10 conference and stuff.
Wow.
And so we get together every week and we talk college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood, because we have the Midwest is known for that hard work, dirt under the fingernails, and we have some of the best blue blood programs in college sports. So the tagline there really fits because the Big 10 is Midwest, and we kind of are both blue collar and blue blood. So we talk about all the different topics. We'll talk about outside of the Big 10. We just concentrate more on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love your logo and some of the graphics and stuff you've done for both shows, but especially the Big 10, because thanks. I there's something about the little flair of me that's the artistic side of Kory that he really has and I don't, but I like to pay attention to logos and designs and colors and things that go well, and you see some of that in college sports with like unique jersey designs and things that they do that'll really accent a team's colors or I love the Big Ten basketball logo with all the flag. And in the middle of the court, and they're
the tournament.
Two-tone. Like some of the stuff they do that really catches your attention.
Well, and if you're not paying attention to that wheel of the flags, you don't realize that it's both the team or each school's two colors that come together in that one right next to each other. You know, they kind of weave right. It's so awesome. It's an awesome logo.
Which thank you for covering that. People should definitely go check out those shows. We'll make sure we always make sure to link to our link tree, which has OddPods Media Network in it.
Yeah.
And you can follow that directly to the 500 Section Lounge in Big Ten, or just search for those.
I was gonna say, if you do a search on any of the social media or in OddPods or OddPods Media, just search that show name and you'll find us. We're pretty if we're not at the very top of the list, we're very close to it. There's some sort of an episode that hits up there. So
yeah. So you can search OddPods right in your podcast player. Go to oddpodsmedia.com. You can use our link tree and find our show as well as those two shows. I felt like a really fun segue. Again, we'll bring up a little more sports since Kory is out. So for our regular listeners, they'll know that sports is not normally one of our main topics, which is why it's great to have you on. But I always love every year, ESPN will do some of their way too early top 25 rankings for college football. I thought we could take a really, really quick look or listen to the list, have fun with anything that we want to have fun with, and move on. If that sounds fun to you guys,
that's perfectly fine.
Okay. I gotta
look this up. I should have pulled this up prior to. So
it's so absurd to have the rankings done this early.
Oh, yes.
And frankly, some of the teams just make sense. Like, you know, if you put Alabama at 1 every year, you're not shocking anybody with that pick, right? But
there's one of about 4 teams that you could put in there every year at number 1, and not everybody could argue. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if you're rotating, you're exactly right. If you rotate in a handful of teams in the top 5, nobody's going to bat an eye.
And it's June, so nobody should argue anyway.
Nobody cares. We don't even have rosters. That's why I love this list, because it's way too early and it's already in the name and they own it. Would it be more fun to start at 1 or to count down from 25? What would you guys prefer?
Well, let's say it this way. You could probably go through a lot more if you start at 25, because you could just go boom, 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 boom. And if we have anything that,
all right,
you know what I mean?
Conversation ramp up. Why are we still talking about this?
Right.
I'll go 5 at a time.
Sure.
And feel free to stop me. Otherwise I can keep going. Way too early top 25 rankings for college football for the fall of 22. Number 25, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Number 24, the Tennessee Volunteers. Slightly surprised to see them there. Number 23.
They're still reeling from their game against Purdue in the bowl game.
That's right. Go Big Ten.
That's right.
Number 23, Cincinnati Bearcats. Number 22, Kentucky Wildcats. This is feeling like basketball rankings. Number 21, Ole Miss Rebels. Number 20, Arkansas Razorbacks. Any shockers there for you?
I'm shocked that Kentucky's not higher, because they lost some stuff from the season or from last season, but they still have I would have thought they would have been up in the teens.
Some key points for Kentucky. Their 2021 record was 10-3. They went 5-3 in the SEC. They're returning 7 on offense, 7 defense, and 1 on special teams.
And see, that's a good amount coming back. I mean,
I feel like the problem with teams like Kentucky and like Cincinnati, I think, is in the same boat. Is you could be returning a lot of players. You could even be returning all of your key players. And for those kind of mid-level schools, they can still struggle because they had the year of surprising the crap out of everybody.
The overperformance.
And then the following year, it's just
hangover year.
It's a hangover year. They don't have enough tools to adapt to the other teams who do have the tools to adapt to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was a little interested to see Cincinnati behind Kentucky. They were 13-1 in 2021, but this is probably why they're only returning 2 defensive starters.
I was going to say, you get to that point where returning starters because their defense is gone.
Got obliterated.
Yeah.
All right, let me move on to the next. Number 19, BYU Cougars. Number 18, Baylor Bears. Number 17, Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Number 16, Oregon Ducks. And number 15, Pittsburgh Panthers.
Wow.
Anything shocking in there?
It was shocking to hear Wake Forest uttered.
Well, they were pretty good last year, and they're returning a good portion of their offense, I believe.
11-3 last season, 7-1 in the ACC. They're returning 8 on offense, 6 on defense, 2 on special teams.
But that 8 on offense is huge because their offense was putting up a ton of points every game. I mean, it was unusual to see them below 20. I mean, they were just always were putting points up, and if they're returning a majority of their offense, I'm not as surprised that they're in the list. I can jokingly say I'm surprised to see anyone in the ACC outside of Clemson in the list, but true.
More seriously, I get excited when Oregon, the better the team Oregon is in any given season, I'm a little bit more excited for that season than I am. There's a few programs like that that are around the country that I'm glad when they're good, and Oregon is one of them.
I don't disagree.
Has been
go ahead.
Specifically one of those schools for me where it's just they've had so many seasons when they were right there.
Yeah.
They were there and dropped it that like I find myself rooting for Oregon every chance I get. Because I until they get it. Once they get there, I'll probably drop them and I'll move on to someone else. But I want Oregon to get there.
Right. I became an Oregon fan, and I use the quotes there, obviously, simply because I always root for them. But if they were playing Purdue, I'd be like,
well, sure,
die Oregon.
Yeah.
But I back in 1994, would it be the 95 or 96 Rose Bowl? I don't remember, one of that few years there. They played Penn State in the Rose Bowl, and they still had Donald Duck on their helmet. And I loved that. I had seen it, but I'd never seen a game of Oregon play. And I saw it and I'm like, I love this school. So I love Donald Duck. I've got a great nephew that he was the quietest thing growing up, and he still is quiet, but like I'm always the way I am, and I talk and try to pry words out, and Dawson just would not do it anything until I saw Donald Duck on a shirt or his shirt, and I said, what's crazy about Donald Duck? I said, he's not worried that he's not wearing any pants. That's crazy. And he started talking to me. So like, I love Donald Duck for that. Like, what is that meme where he's fine with his shirt on, but as soon as he takes his shirt off, he's afraid that he's scared because people see him naked. It's like,
right, yeah.
You're not wearing pants, dude. Come on. Great.
Maybe it's just his belly button he's trying to hide.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Self-conscious. Is any opposite question of Oregon? Is anyone excited that Pittsburgh is ranked, or is it just Mark May? And
I'm honestly shocked they didn't fall off the face of the earth with Kenny Pickett leaving. Actually, Kenny Pickett probably is their second best quarterback on their roster, but
I have the opposite feeling. I couldn't care less if Pittsburgh is ever ranked ever.
Thank you for saying that correctly.
Which part?
Couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less. So there we go. All right, next 5. Ranked 14, Oklahoma Sooners. Ranked 13, Houston Cougars. It's weird to put Houston above Oklahoma. Number 12, Clemson. That feels really weird based on the last
double-digit rankings.
Number 11, Oklahoma State, and number 10, Michigan Wolverines. How are we feeling about that 5? It feels weird to have Oklahoma State and Houston above Oklahoma, and for Clemson to be in the double digits.
Now, what I would say about Oklahoma, though, is they lost Lincoln Riley.
That's
And
the big.
Yes, they got their coach, the OC from Clemson, but he's never been a head coach yet. So
Just
it's
a big question mark.
So while I don't think he's going to be a bad coach necessarily, and I can't remember his name, or I would say it.
Brent Venables.
Yes,
Venables.
And he's going to probably be just fine and a really good coach, but there's still that unknown yet. There are plenty of great coordinators that have became coaches and didn't do well as a head coach. Look at Charlie Weiss at Notre Dame.
Yep.
Great assistant, wasn't the best head coach in the world. So I don't know that Brett Venables is going to be that way, but that's the question mark. So I could see them being a little bit lower. And Houston, I guess, I don't know.
If you're curious,
they might be the Cincinnati this year. Maybe
they might be.
Maybe.
If you're curious, Houston went 12-2, 8-0 in the AAC. They're returning 7 on offense, 5 defense, and 1 on special teams. So it feels interesting that they're that high because they're Houston and they're in the AAC.
Yeah.
But I think Houston kind of falls into the category with TCU here, where people just like rooting for those two, and they like seeing some different powers in Texas than Texas A&M, and then kind of tier 2 Texas Tech and Baylor. I think people just like rooting for newer teams in Texas. So I don't have a problem. I hope Houston does well.
You talk about those Houston, and you think about last year, their 2 losses were their bowl game and Cincinnati. Those were their 2 losses.
And who did they play in the bowl game?
I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I do believe that was the one loss because they went 8-0 in the AAC.
Yeah. I mean,
they both went 8-0. They didn't play each other in the regular season, but they played each other obviously in the championship game, and Cincinnati won.
Interesting.
So that and their bowl game were their only losses. And here's the thing. They were actually they were lower than Cincinnati, but there was talk that what happens if Houston does beat Cincinnati, does that get them into the top 8 at least, to where they get a New Year's 6. And so there was question that they could have made it into the outskirts of that playoff if they would have beaten Cincinnati. But what I was getting at there is if Cincinnati had lost and went to the Holiday Bowl, I don't know that they would have probably played at the top of their game, kind of maybe like Houston did when they got beat, so it's like, oh, well, okay.
That brings up an interesting question. If maybe try rapid response. What number of teams are you a fan of for a playoff? Keep it the same, 8, 12, 16. More than 16 feels kind of absurd, but
I'm a fan of 12 or 16.
Kittle?
I would certainly say the more the merrier. However, keeping in mind that they got to go 1 a week, I would probably cap it at 12. I probably think you don't need to do any more than 8.
Yeah. I think I feel real good about 8. I feel like
8 is the least amount that I would be ideal with.
Okay.
Because you get the Power 5 conference champions, and then the 3 wild cards at the end. Yeah.
I think
the best of 5 and then the 2 wild cards or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. Except I would put an asterisk next to Power 5. If you have 3 losses or more, you can come in at large, but you lose your automatic bid.
Yeah.
So
and I think we maybe even had this conversation in that tweet that we put out. We had this conversation with Dalton. Because last year, our national champion wouldn't have made the playoffs if the caveat of needing to be a conference champion was there. Because that was your original thought is, you have to be a conference champion. And I'm like, Georgia was the best team in the country.
Right.
I mean, by far.
Yeah.
And they just, and Dalton and I talked about this even when I thought Georgia went into that SEC championship game with a basic plan to play Alabama.
Yeah.
Because they knew that they could end up seeing them again. And which obviously they did, and they beat them that time.
Right.
But like, I didn't think they wanted to show their hand, because if they showed their hand and happened to get beat and then they saw them again, they didn't have anything to throw at them. And so like they deserved it. But I totally think that you're right. If you go to 3 losses, there's got to be somebody that's better.
Well, and part of why I like that is because if there is somebody that does deserve to be there, let's say that Georgia, for whatever reason, was up for decision, as one of the 3 at large. If somebody like Wake Forest wins the ACC, but with 3 losses, kick them out and make sure Georgia's in. Like, then it's not a question for your at large bids. It's like, no, Cincinnati can go, Georgia can go, whoever, and it makes that decision easier. It's like you shouldn't be in a 3-loss team is typically ranked around 10 anyways by the end of the season. Like your 8s and 9s are usually the beginning of the 2 losses. Maybe a little earlier, but typically 3 losses, you're out of the top 10.
Get 1 or 2. I mean, if Ohio State or Alabama loses 2 in a year, they're dropping, but they're not dropping that far necessarily for the postseason rankings.
Yeah, I mean, if they lost to like Northwestern and Indiana as 2 examples in the same season, they're probably out of the top 10.
You lose to those 2, you might want to think about closing the doors.
Well, right, for Ohio State. But like if they lost a non-conference game to Oregon and then like
if
Penn
they
State,
lose to Alabama and Penn State, they could still be top 10.
Right. And with only those 2 losses, they probably should be. But that's my point. I think as soon as you hit 3 losses, you're probably out of the top 10 by the end of the season anyways.
Yeah.
So
depends on the school and when you lose.
That's true.
Depending on the team and when you lose, because you could easily, let's take Ohio State for this. Like, let's say they lose to Notre Dame week 1. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think it will.
Sure.
But let's say they lose to Notre Dame. If Notre Dame beats Ohio State, Notre Dame's going to be really, really good next year. Like that's their playoff potentially bound.
Sure.
If they beat Ohio State. But let's say that happens. So that's a loss to Notre Dame. Penn State trips them up.
Night game, lose by 3.
Right.
Like that.
Right. And then against the school up north.
Yeah.
They bite you. Ohio State could still be considered one of the best teams in the country.
I don't see it.
Because Michigan is good.
I know, but you see a 3-loss Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State, you're still going, and they're still.
I tell you what, if
9, 10, 11.
If Clemson would have made it to the ACC championship game, even with their 3 losses, they might have had an argument.
The only way that I would be okay with that, considering, and you can't write this into the rules, but just from the eye test standpoint, is if they go to the ACC game and win by 45 points. Over the other team, and you go, okay, maybe maybe they're an at-large, but that's why I say they could lose their automatic, but become
but still get one because of an at-large.
And this is where the big point comes into play here. Why this discussion, I think, is putting us in the right spot, because you make the playoff too big, then you run into the issue of you're just playing to get into this oversized playoff, which creates a crappier season. And so in a world where we want the games to matter, we want every single game to matter, a small playoff is what creates that. Because Ohio State could, quote unquote, be a top 10 team, a top 8 team, but if they drop 3, then do they actually deserve it? Like that's the question. And so have a 16-team playoff and Ohio State still makes it, yet they drop 3 games. Now all of a sudden, well, I mean, around here, people are going to care about those 3 losses, but it cheapens each and every game a little bit.
I mean, here's a question in that vein. Do you really want to see a number 2 ranked team playing a 15th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers in the college football playoff? Like, you know who I want to see? I want to see the number 1 team against a 10-2 Wisconsin, who's at 8. That's the kind of matchup I want to see, because then you're talking about Clemson or Bama against like a pretty good Big Ten West, or maybe UCLA slips into 8 because they're 10-2 by the end of the season. that's a way more interesting matchup to me than
Exactly.
Pittsburgh
Every once
or
in a
Wake
while,
Forest or somebody in the team.
well, every once in a while, you will still get the, let's see what Cincinnati or Baylor is actually made out of.
I think that's why I kind of support a 12-team one a little bit more, because you can give the top 4 seeds a bye.
Yeah.
And the other 8 play each other. So you have some of those lower teams that would miss out any other year still get their playoff game. They may even win, because then the next week they're coming to play one of the big 4, and have those games filter into the 4 buys. The one thing that kills me, don't do it based on what seed remains. Just play the bracket out.
Yeah.
Because it drives me nuts trying to figure out, okay, the 4 seed here has to, if they win, the winner of this game automatically goes here. But if the other team wins this one goes here. Don't make me do math. Okay. Just give me a bracket. Tell me how it's going to be played out when each team wins. I'm okay with that.
Here's another, which likely won't be rapid, but I'll say rapid question.
It's a very kind way of saying don't talk too much.
I never thought of that. That's so interesting. I'll use that in the
rapid
That's
response.
Go in my Midwest repertoire of manipulation.
I probably have used that before on other episodes. So, do you play some of those at home of the higher ranked team, or do you put them all in the southern US like the bowl games?
I think what you do is you take those first 4 round games.
Are you talking about with 12 or with 8?
With 12? Let's say with 12, because you're not adding any game. You're with 8. Honestly, you're not really adding any more games unless you add them on site, because you can make those 58,000 bowl games they've got those the first rounds of those games. So you're not actually technically adding any more games, because you just take some of those bowl games and turn them into the early round games.
Right.
But like, if you want to take it to the 12, those first 4 matchups that play into the buys, let them play on campus, whoever the higher seed is.
There you go.
I like that idea, because then that senior day, it's not a guarantee that you have another game, but the senior day is where you say goodbye, but you have one more game. Holy cow. Yeah. Bring it on.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the Midwest of the country wants to see those games be optional, be home games, and not just scheduled in the South. I totally understand the travel side of it and making it a destination for travel and whatever. But I think every single freaking Big Ten MAC fan is like, no, I want you to freaking play at Penn State in the middle of December. That's what I want you to do. So Clemson, right on up to the middle of Pennsylvania. There's going to be nothing to do but the hotel and the stadium. That's it.
Listen, SEC, at some point we get tired of watching our Big Ten defensive linemen get gassed when they're
Yeah, you know what I'm tired of hearing about every
humidity
time is
eating them alive, and
the whole team has flown to some exotic locale and they all have flu right before the bowl game because they all flew to freaking Florida or Louisiana or whatever. Okay, next 5. Number 9, just ahead of Michigan State Wolverines, Michigan State Spartans. Number 8, North Carolina State Wolfpack. Number 7, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Number 6, Utah Utes. And number 5, Texas A&M Aggies. Any shockers in there? I think North Carolina State a little bit.
I
little.
So bad for them from last year. Like, they were at their bowl game, and I want to say they were playing, I think, Central Michigan, and the day of the game, or the night before, or the day of the game, they announced the team they were playing couldn't play because of COVID. So they literally were there to play, and North Carolina State was really young, and they lost a couple of games that could, because they were in the driver's seat in, I don't remember which division they're in the ACC, but
they're the same. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But they were really, but they lost. I think they lost to Wake Forest and stuff, but they were really strong, and they were expected to be much better this year. And I guess I don't study the ACC as much as what I should, I guess, but I'm not shocked by them necessarily.
And
A&M being number 5 surprises me a little.
So Michigan State, just to comment on that as the Michigan guy here.
Yeah.
Michigan dropping to 10 and dropping south of Michigan State. It's again one of those, there's just question marks. There's things that need to be answered and we just can't know right now for the same reason that Cincinnati dropped. Michigan lost its defense to the NFL.
Yes.
And 8 defenders are gone. Their 4 leading tacklers are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And a new coordinator because Jim Harbaugh played games and Josh Gaddis got pissed off.
Yep.
And
I have an opinion on Jim Harbaugh. I'll tell you after this.
That'll be some bonus content. We'll save that for a mid bit.
I may become really a fan favorite for your Ohio State fans.
That's fine.
Did I derail you? I'm sorry.
No. You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. But anyway, so that's what happened there. Michigan's offense is going to look just like it did. It should. Looks like it did last year, but if not, that it might be improving at the quarterback position. We'll see how that goes. But
Michigan State is a little bit of a surprise just because of and again, it's June. This could solidify and turn completely different, but Kenneth Walker III made that line look like they were superstars.
Yeah.
And they're not quite as good as what he made them look. So it's a matter of how they've developed and can they actually produce what they were hoped to do and what Kenneth Walker did for them. I mean, can they help the next running back? Because there were times that Dalton said that they've called him the eraser last year because he erased a lot of mistakes that the linemen made. And so when you have that back, you can be a little bit sloppier when he's able to do that. So for him not being there, they're going to be good, but it's just a matter of how that line performs.
I think my only note here is not a surprise so much as one thing I've enjoyed out of the Pac-12 is Utah in the Pac-12.
Yes.
And seeing Utah, they were already kind of a spoiler team for most of those out of conference games anyways, but then to get BYU trending and then see some of these Utah BYU ranked rivalry games is kind of fun. And there's a little part of me, not a little part, a pretty big part. I really want the Pac-12. If they expand, they won't do it because it's not the strength of team they need. I really want them to take BYU, Boise State, and Hawaii just for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it. And then if they want to take Colorado State to pair up to Colorado, they can do that too. But I just think some of those teams would be so much fun to cause chaos.
I'm shocked that the Pac-12 or the Pac-12 hasn't taken UNLV and tried to get them in there.
I don't know enough about the stuff that matters to really know. Like what really matters is on campus enrollment, city populations, money, TV markets, how many eyeballs are watching, whatever. I don't know any of that, so I can't weigh in on it. I'm just as a fan who's building custom conferences on my PlayStation. There's that part of me that's like, just get Boise and BYU and Utah and Hawaii all in there. Just let them run because you know that like Boise and BYU are going to beat Washington State on a down year and Cal and Stanford on down years, and they're going to run amok just enough that it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
I'd
love
love
a Cinderella conference.
You talk about you talked about making things up basically, like an ideal conference. Okay.
Right.
We were talking maybe last week, a couple weeks ago, that they're talking about Gonzaga changing conferences from the not the Mountain West. The Mountain West, isn't it?
Are they Big East for basketball?
They're gonna go to the Big East potentially. Gonzaga to the Big East. They are in Washington State, and they're going to be in the Big East because it will allow them to be on TV during primetime rather than always on the West Coast.
Wild.
So it'll produce more money. Plus, them being, here's the thing: they're not all. If they upgrade to the Big East, they're not going undefeated like they did a couple years back.
Right.
They're going to lose some games, and I'm not saying they're going to be trash, but they're going to lose some more games. Mark Few will get a few more L's in his loss column because Villanova, even though Jay Wright's gone, is legit, and depending on who or how their new coach performs, but like the Big East is, I don't know if you guys are up on like the 30 for 30s, but the Requiem for the Big East is one of the 30 for 30s. It's amazing. It talks about how the Big East formed and why they formed. And like they got away from it because they, 10 years or so ago, the ACC basically pillaged the Big East and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the Big East has always been a really good basketball conference. So I think Gonzaga will fit extremely well in there. Don't get me wrong, but they're gonna lose some more games than they're used to.
I think so. Well,
if they go.
Speaking of college football, I think you just drew a nice parallel to Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC.
Yes.
They're gonna still be good, but they're gonna chalk up a few more losses. Then they're gonna stumble a little bit more often they're expecting in the
well,
SEC.
I mean, so possibly there are other teams in the SEC, right? So
sure. But I think they're gonna stumble on some of that mid-tier SEC a little more than they think. Now, I don't think 1 through 3 is going to be shocking at all. So I'm just going to stop on 4 on its own and say USC Trojans. And then we can cut to 1 through 3, which we're all going to go. Yep. USC 2021 record.
At it, huh?
2021 record 4-8, 3-6 in the Pac-12. Returning starters 6 offense, 5 defense, 1 special teams. But that doesn't really tell the story of why they're ranked number 4.
No. Have you seen his house that he bought?
The house that Lincoln Riley built? You mean the new team, or do you mean the literal house?
No, the house he bought. He bought a house that. Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah,
take a look at that.
I'm sure the donors bought him a very nice house. So the story of USC.
Are you saying they're dirty?
No, I would.
College is dirty.
I would never say that. I absolutely loathe USC. I think the story of USC
is it because there was a. Ohio State has always they've a couple times now it's happened where they've had the guy that like he would be the coach that everybody's talking about, except there's Pete Carroll, like everyone's talking about him instead, and then there's Nick Saban, everyone's talking about him. Is that part of it? You've never had the guy, you've had almost the guy.
Are you talking about as an Ohio State fan?
Yes, I'm wondering where the USC hatred comes from.
Well,
is it from all the second fiddle years where it was?
Yeah, I mean, we scheduled a home and home with them a few years back, and we lost both. That didn't feel good. Pete Carroll was easy to hate. That then the stuff happened with I'm blanking on it. Reggie Bush.
Oh yeah.
That happened, and then another thing that happened was Carson Palmer played at the Bengals and couldn't keep his mouth shut on the radio about USC and Ohio. And I'm thinking, you play for the Bengals in Ohio, your agent has just got to be like cursing in the other room as you're bad mouthing.
People in Cincinnati don't care about Ohio State.
That's not true. You're wrong. Just he had to be cursing.
No, it's hard to believe, but if you get outside of the walls of Central Ohio,
it's not as rabid.
It's not even as rabid inside as some fans would make you think, certainly, let alone outside. But the Cincinnati, on years that Cincinnati isn't 12-0, those fans don't have a whole lot to look forward to. And Ohio State very quickly becomes their favorite team until Cincinnati has a good record.
If you read social media, the next decade is the Bengals.
You know what? Now that Carson Palmer's gone, I hope that it is a decade.
You know what? I love Joe Burrow too.
Yeah. Oh, super likable.
I heard a story about him.
100% tried and true Buckeye Ohio State guy.
what made me fall in love with him was Orgeron. I can't remember.
Ed Orgeron.
Ed. I wanted to call him Bill. I knew that wasn't right. So it's
Billy Orgeron.
Yeah. I don't know why. But Ed Orgeron was telling a story about when he was recruiting Burrow to LSU. And he said they brought him into the coaches and on a room where all the coaches were, and they were talking. And he said, I knew him. First 10 minutes that boy was in there. He was the smartest man in the room. Well, the reporter went and told Joe Burrow that. And Joe Burrow looked at him. He goes, I knew in 5, and then winked and walked away. I love that story because that's just like, because you know what? He probably was right. But at the same time, he's got to have just that little edge, I'm cocky. I knew in 5.
I'd like to think that Ed Orgeron thinks he's so sharp that he can judge a character that quickly when really that's just his whole attention span. So he's just got to make character calls in 10 minutes or less because that's all the time he's got. Not so surprising 3-2-1 Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. We don't need to discuss those because it makes total sense.
And that's a coin flip for those 3. You could have put it Ohio State at 1, Georgia 2, or Georgia at 1. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier is you could put that handful, one of those. They're fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But USC is there because of Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, absolutely. Lincoln Riley and the team that he maybe built. We'll find out this season. Sam, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show this week.
Wow, it's been over an hour already.
It's been over an hour already.
I'm sorry. See, I told you I could talk because we didn't even touch name, image, and likeness.
We didn't even touch it. That might be a good excuse for you to come back in the fall right before
there we go
starts. We can talk about that. It has been a total pleasure. Again, everyone go check out 500 Section Lounge and Big 10 Plus 4. Excellent podcasts in the OddPods Media Network. We want to say thank you to our sponsor, Artius Man. Head over to artiusman.com. Use promo code The Middle. Get 25% off your first order. They make incredible products for everybody, but also beard oils and all kinds of bathroom products for men that are phenomenal, made right here in Ohio. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and check out the episode next week.